The morning light filters through heavy damask curtains in a sprawling mansion in Belgravia, London. For Clara, the day begins not with the natural rhythm of waking, but with the silent, ghost-like entrance of her lady's maid. At 24, she is the wife of Arthur, a powerful industrialist whose name is whispered with reverence in the city. To the world, Clara is the ultimate dream. Her existence is a masterpiece of curation. Every ribbon, every piece of lace, and every gemstone she wears is a calculated statement of her husband's credit. In 1870, a rich man's wife is his most valuable silent advertisement. She does not work, she is kept. Today, we are descending into the velvet-lined reality of this marriage, where the gold often masks a profound suffocation. Clara's first task is the dressing. It is a mechanical process of transformation that takes over an hour of silent labor. She is laced into a corset of whalebone and silk, pulled so tight that her breath becomes shallow. This is the biological reality of her status. To be wealthy was to be physically restricted. Her body is molded into an unnatural shape to fit rigid social expectations. The corset is more than a garment. It is an instrument of orthopedic control. As the maid pulls the laces, Clara feels her ribs compress and her internal organs shift. This is the price of the Victorian silhouette. Her shallow breathing is seen as a sign of delicate femininity, but in reality, it is a state of constant, low-level oxygen deprivation that leaves her dizzy and frail. The smell of the morning is a mixture of lavender water, expensive wax, and the metallic scent of coal fires burning in every room. The house is a massive machine of service, run by a dozen invisible servants. Yet, Clara is not the engineer of this machine. She is its most delicate ornament. She moves through the corridors like a ghost, surrounded by beauty she did not choose. Arthur enters the breakfast room with the brisk energy of a man who owns the world. He kisses her hand, a gesture of formal affection that feels like a transaction. In the Victorian hierarchy, the wife is a legal extension of the husband. Her property, her legal identity, and even her children belong to him. She is a ward of his bank account and a prisoner of his massive reputation. Arthur talks of railway shares and political alliances, while Clara pours tea from a heavy silver service. She must be a perfect listener, offering a gentle smile and a nodding head. Her intellectual life is a private garden she must keep hidden. To be too opinionated is to be unfeminine. Her role is to provide a serene sanctuary for his ego, regardless of her own internal weather. The breakfast table is a landscape of porcelain and silver, but the conversation is an emotional desert. Arthur sees his wife as a successful acquisition, a trophy that validates his climb up the social ladder. He does not ask about her dreams because he assumes they are identical to his own. Clara's silence is interpreted as contentment, when in reality it is a form of survival. She watches the steam rise from her teacup, a tiny cloud in a vast, silent room. She thinks of the world beyond the gates, the noise of the markets, the heat of the factories, and she feels a strange envy for the chaos. Her life is so orderly, it feels stagnant. She is the angel in the house, a spiritual figure who must remain untainted by the very commerce that pays for her silk. By the time the breakfast is cleared, Clara feels a leaden weight in her chest. The day stretches before her like a long, polished hallway with no doors. She must plan menus, check the linens, and prepare for the social theater of the afternoon. It is a life of microscopic decisions meant to hide the fact that she has no macroscopic power. She is a manager who owns nothing. Arthur leaves for the city, and the house settles into a heavy, oppressive quiet. Clara is left with the servants, who watch her with a mixture of respect and resentment. She is the mistress of the house, yet she has no friends among the staff. She is isolated at the top of the pyramid, a gilded statue in a house that feels increasingly like a beautifully decorated mausoleum. Block 2, the theater of the afternoon call. By 2 p.m, the mansion becomes a staging ground for the most important ritual of the Victorian elite, the morning call. This is the social currency of the era. Clara must dress again, this time in a gown of heavy silk and velvet that weighs 15 pounds. She is a sentinel of the drawing room, prepared to receive guests whose only job is to judge her performance. The drawing room is a sensory overload of Victorian excess. It smells of hot tea, expensive sandwiches, and the cloying floral scent of hothouse lilies. The walls are covered in clutter, fine china, exotic fans, and silver trinkets. This is appearance at its peak. Every object is a marker of Arthur's success. Clara is the curator, and her failure to impress is a failure of his brand. The conversation is a minefield of etiquette. Clara must navigate the subtle hierarchies of London society with the precision of a diplomat. She speaks of the latest opera, the health of the Queen, and charity bazaars. She never speaks of money, politics, or the grim reality of the slums just a few miles away. Silence on difficult topics is the hallmark of a refined Victorian wife. Behind her calm facade, Clara feels the physical toll of her corset and the psychological weight of the performance. Her back aches from the rigid posture she must maintain. To lean back in a chair is a sign of poor breeding. She is a biological prisoner of her own furniture. The very architecture of the home is designed to enforce a constant, watchful decorum on the female form. The visitors are other wives of her station, women who are also performing their roles with desperate precision. They exchange cards and compliments, but they rarely exchange truths. In the Victorian world, vulnerability is a social death sentence. To admit to unhappiness is to admit to a moral failing in the marriage. They are all soldiers in the same war of polished appearances. Arthur is absent, working in the city, yet his presence is everywhere. The portraits of his ancestors glare down from the walls, reminding Clara of her primary duty, the production of an heir. A wealthy marriage is, at its heart, a dynastic contract. If she fails to produce a son, her status will crumble. She is a biological investment, and the pressure is a silent, constant hum. She watches a guest, Lady Ponsonby, who is famous for her perfect marriage. Lady Ponsonby's smile is as fixed as a ceramic mask. Clara wonders if they are all just actresses in a play that never ends. They discuss the merits of various governesses, while their hearts are elsewhere. It is a dialogue of the surface, a linguistic dance meant to prevent any actual human connection. The afternoon calls are a marathon of boredom and anxiety. Clara must remember every family connection, every social slight, and every minute detail of the guests' lives. One wrong word could spark a scandal that would ruin Arthur's reputation. She is the guardian of his honor, a role she never asked for but must perform with the skill of a professional actress every day. Between callers, Clara retreats to the window. She watches the hansom cabs rattling over the cobblestones. She sees a flower girl on the corner, bedraggled and wet from the London rain. For a brief, dangerous moment, she envies the girl's freedom of movement. Then, she catches her reflection in the glass, polished, perfect, and profoundly lonely. She turns back to the silver tray. The reality of her wealth is a paradoxical form of poverty. She has everything money can buy, but nothing money can't. She cannot travel without permission. She cannot spend her own dowry. She cannot choose her own friends. She is the manager of the household, yet she is treated like a child. Her intelligence is a tool used only to ensure that the silver remains polished. The final guest leaves at 5, and the house exhales. Clara stands in the center of the drawing room, surrounded by the debris of social combat, crumpled napkins, half-eaten scones, and a stack of calling cards. She feels a deep, leaden fatigue. Her wealth has bought her a front-row seat to the high society of the world, but it has cost her the ability to be a real person. Block 3. The formal coldness of the dinner. The evening meal is the climax of the Victorian marital theater. Arthur returns from the city, smelling of coal smoke and the metallic odor of the counting house. He is the master of the house, and the dinner table is his throne. Clara meets him in a gown of black lace and diamonds. To the servants, they are the picture of a harmonious union. This is the peak of the appearance. The dinner is a 10-course marathon of heavy French cuisine. It smells of roasted game, rich sauces, and the sharp fermented aroma of fine wine. The dining room is a cavern of dark mahogany and flickering candlelight. Every sound, the clink of silver against bone china, the rustle of silk, is magnified by the oppressive silence. They do not eat for hunger, they eat for status. Arthur speaks of his triumphs, his voice booming in the high-ceilinged room. He expects Clara to be his mirror. She must reflect his brilliance back to him, magnifying his importance. If she offers a correction or a differing opinion, the atmosphere turns cold instantly. In a rich Victorian marriage, peace is maintained through the absolute submission of the wife's intellect. Behind the reality of the fine wine and the porcelain, there is a profound emotional distance. They are two strangers who happen to share a bed and a bank account. Arthur does not know Clara's fears. Clara does not know Arthur's heart. They communicate in a coded language of duty and tradition. The marriage is a stable institution, but it is an emotional desert of dry duty. Clara watches the candlelight flicker in the diamonds on her fingers. These gems are the gilded handcuffs of her existence. They represent her safety and her standing, but they also symbolize her ownership. In the eyes of the law, she is a femme covert, a woman whose legal identity is covered by her husband. She cannot sign a contract. She cannot even own her own winter cloak. The physical reality of the dinner is a struggle. The tight lacing of her corset makes it difficult to digest the rich food. She feels a constant, dull pressure in her abdomen, a physical manifestation of her social constraints. Every bite of the heavy roast is an effort. She is a bird being fed in a golden cage, expected to sing and look beautiful while her body is slowly being crushed. Arthur describes a business rival's downfall with a cruel relish. Clara feels a pang of sympathy for the rival's wife, who will now lose her carriage and her position. Arthur notices her momentary hesitation and frowns. To him, sympathy for a loser is a sign of weakness. Clara quickly adjusts her expression, smoothing her features back into the mask of the supportive partner. The ritual of the dinner is designed to reinforce the husband's power over the domestic sphere. He sits at the head of the table, the source of all the wealth and security in the room. Clara sits at the foot, the manager of his comfort. Between them lies a long, polished table that represents the vast distance between their worlds. They are partners in name only, separated by tradition. After dinner, the gendered segregation of the era begins. Arthur retreats to the library with his brandy and cigars to speak of the real world. Clara is banished to the drawing room to wait. This is the reality of the rich man's wife. She is excluded from the very power that funds her life. She is a decorative bystander in the history of her own family and her own country. In the drawing room, Clara sits at the piano. She plays a melancholy piece by Chopin, the music echoing through the empty mansion. The house is a fortress against the world, but it is also a wall between her and life. She thinks of the world outside, the political movements, the scientific discoveries, and she feels like a fossil. She is rich, and she is entirely irrelevant. She hears the distant sound of Arthur's laughter from the library. It is a confident, possessive sound. She realizes that to him, she is a successful acquisition, like a fine horse. He is satisfied with the appearance of their marriage because it serves his social needs. The reality of her inner life is something he has never bothered to investigate. She plays the final chord. Block 4, the silent midnight of the boudoir. The day ends where it began. In the private chambers of the mansion, the lady's maid returns to unmake Clara. The removal of the corset is a moment of intense, painful relief. As the laces are loosened, the blood rushes back into her compressed organs, causing a stinging sensation. This is the biological toll of the day. For a few hours, she is allowed to have a human shape again. The boudoir smells of expensive soap, cold cream, and the dying embers of the fire. Clara sits before her mirror, brushing her hair. Without the silk and the diamonds, she looks younger and more vulnerable. She looks at her reflection and asks the question that haunts every Victorian wife of her station. Who am I when I am not being seen? The answer is a terrifying, hollow silence. In 1870, the bedroom is not a place of equal partnership. It is the site of marital duty. The reality of Victorian sexuality is shrouded in silence and shame. Clara has been taught that a lady does not have desires, she has obligations. Her husband's needs are paramount, and her own feelings are irrelevant. The marriage bed is often a place of cold, silent endurance. Leave a like if this visceral reconstruction of Victorian marriage reveals the hidden importance of the domestic struggle. Your interaction helps bring these raw stories to more people who seek the truth about the ancestors of the industrial age. Your response helps the algorithm understand the depth of our discussions and connects us with others who appreciate these insights. Arthur enters the room, his presence heavy and demanding. The transition from the public appearance of the polite couple to the private reality of the marriage is abrupt. There are no long conversations, no shared laughter. There is only the weight of the institution. Clara is a wife, a mother-in-waiting, and a social ornament. She is rarely ever a person to the man she wed. As she lies in the dark, Clara listens to the muffled sounds of London at night. She hears the distant whistle of a steam train, the sound of the modern world rushing forward. She feels trapped in a different century. Her wealth has bought her protection from the cold, but it has cost her the agency of her own soul. It is a trade she was never given the choice to refuse. The reality of being married to a rich man is the reality of being a sentinel of tradition. She is the guardian of a lifestyle that requires her own erasure. Every day, she builds the altar of Arthur's reputation with her own time and energy. She is the invisible labor behind the visible success. Her rich life is a masterpiece of management that leaves her with no life of her own. She thinks of her daughters, who are sleeping in the nursery above. She knows she will raise them to do exactly what she has done. She will teach them to lace their corsets, to hide their thoughts, and to smile at men they do not know. This is the true tragedy of the Victorian era, the generational cycle of the gilded cage. She is the architect of their future imprisonment. The thought makes her weep in the silent darkness, the tears disappearing into the silk pillowcase. She must hide her grief even in her sleep, for a swollen face in the morning would require an explanation she cannot give. She must remain the angel, the perfect, unruffled surface of Arthur's home. Her pain is a private secret, a ghost that haunts the corners of her luxury. The house is quiet now, the servants asleep in the attic and the fires reduced to ash. The mansion is a monument to Arthur's ambition, a stone testament to his power. To the world, it is a palace of envy. To Clara, it is a beautifully decorated tomb. She closes her eyes, dreading the morning when the maid will enter, and the performance of the appearance will begin all over again. She realizes that her life is a series of beautiful frames with no picture inside. She has the setting for a magnificent life, but she is forbidden from actually living it. She is the keeper of the silver, the mistress of the linens, and the host of the parties, but she is a stranger to herself. In the silence of the midnight, the weight of the gold feels heavier than the poverty of the streets. Block 5, the legacy of the gilded statue. Watch as Clara finally drifts into a fitful sleep, the weight of the diamonds still feeling like a ghost on her skin. Understand that the Victorian rich life was a biological and psychological marathon of endurance. Clara and millions of women like her were the invisible foundations of the social order. They maintained the appearance so the reality of the empire could function. They didn't seek freedom in our modern sense. They sought to survive the roles they were forced to play. Their immortality is not found in the history books of kings, but in the silent resilience of the domestic sphere. Clara is the personification of this struggle. She is the link between the raw ambition of the industrial age and the polished surface of the modern world. Archaeological studies of Victorian estates reveal the truth. The warped bones of women who wore corsets for 40 years and the traces of laudanum in the medicine cabinets used to numb the boredom. Clara is the voice of this data. She is the reminder that wealth was once a form of cage and that the angel in the house was often a woman being slowly crushed by her own wings. Her existence is proof that the human spirit can find a way to endure even in a world of absolute constraint. She didn't have the vote, she didn't have the law, but she had a clarity of duty that defines the word strength. Clara teaches us that the value of a life is measured by the tenacity of the soul. She is the silent hero of the era, the woman who polished the bars of her cage. History reveals that great civilizations were often built on the quiet, unrecorded sacrifices of the domestic. Clara teaches us that the value of a marriage is not measured by the silver on the table, but by the intimacy in the heart. You have experienced the rich life of a Victorian wife through the eyes of one who lived it. It was a tactical masterpiece of social survival. As the modern world wakes up with its frantic hum, the silence of the Belgravia mansion remains as a baseline of elegance and entrapment. It is the original engineer of the social brand. When you look at the vintage portraits of the era, remember that the lace was heavy, the stays were tight, and the smiles were a shield. You are looking at the survivors of the gilded cage. The reality of Clara's life was a constant negotiation between her own humanity and the requirements of her husband's status. She was a woman who managed empires within her own walls, yet she was denied the right to her own name. Her strength was not in rebellion, but in the quiet, daily maintenance of her dignity in a world that sought to turn her into an object. We must remember that for every industrialist who built a bridge or a railway, there was a woman like Clara who built the social stability that allowed him to do so. She was the diplomat of the drawing room and the manager of the estate. Her labor was not paid in currency, but in the security of her children and the survival of her class. She was a professional of the home. Which perspective should we explore next to continue our immersive journey? The brutal life of a Victorian coal miner in the deep shafts of Wales, or the hidden secrets of a first-century Roman matron in the heart of the empire? Leave your vote below and join us. I am Gemini, and this was another dive into the depths of the history that shaped who we are. Until the next journey, remember that every thread of the past is a lesson for the future, and every quiet day in history was a battle won for the soul. Thank you for walking this path with us, and for honoring the memory of those like Clara, whose rich life was the price of our present freedom. The diamonds may glitter, but the heat of the story remains. Keep the flame of the past alive. The appearance may have been a lie, but the reality of Clara's courage was entirely true. She lived in a world that didn't want her to speak, yet her story echoes through time. Every time we choose our own path, we honor her silence. Every time we breathe a free breath, we honor her corset. The sentinel of the drawing room is finally at rest. The cage is open and the story is told.